Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Roxanne. If it's your first time here, then welcome. Today I want to tell you all about everything that I read in the month of June. I don't know where the time went in June. I feel like it just was a blur. I don't know what happened, so I'm gonna rely quite heavily on my Goodreads because it doesn't even feel like I read all that much, which is frustrating. But alas, let's talk about it. I did already upload my June reading vlog, so if you haven't watched it, check that out because I do talk a lot there about the things that I read as I was reading them, so it was much more fresh in my memory. So let's talk about the things that I read digitally. Lumberjanes volumes 1 and 2, which were rereads because I wanted to get to volumes 3 and 4. Lumberjanes was a reread for me that always gives me such like a joyful feeling. I absolutely love those graphic novels. They're a lot about friendship and adventure, and I highly recommend them. Heartstopper volume 2 was just a delight. Nothing one of our main characters is coming into their sexuality and trying to figure out what they identify as, and it's beautiful. Snapdragon is a little fantasy middle grade graphic novel that I thoroughly enjoyed. It's queer and it's just about like not getting to know people before you sort of really judge them or listening to what everybody else has always said about them. Julian is a Mermaid is a picture book. It's a queer picture book about Julian who wants to be a mermaid, and I love it. Drama by Raina Telgemeier is about some middle school kids who are putting on a play, and we have some queer side characters and our main character sort of coming into her own and finding some agency and figuring out how to navigate the world of boys and friendship in middle school. And then Something is Killing Children is kind of a horror graphic novel where something is killing the children. So we start off with this sleepover where our main character is telling his friends about something that he heard in the woods, and then in the next scene his friends have died. At that same night they died and he is the only survivor. And then now time has passed and we have many kids that are missing and no one knows what's going on. And so it's kind of like a Little Stranger Things-esque, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And Cookie in the City is another picture book, and it's about a little boy who has a pet cookie. He lives in Puerto Rico and his family has to move to the United States, and he's sad to have to leave his cookie behind, but he finds that in New York there are still things that remind him of home, and he's able to feel at home there as well with his family, and it's just very sweet. Oh, I also read, not digitally, but not as an ebook, but as an audiobook, I read Ghost by Jason Reynolds, and this is the first in a series, and it's about our main character Ghost who sort of stumbles into track, and it's about him finding some purpose and something to keep him grounded and give him goals and friends and someone in addition to his mom to look out for him and sort of help him just stay on the right path. And it's great, and it has lots of discussions about family and expectations and friendship, and yeah, I think it was great. I can't wait to read the rest of this series. Then from my physical TBR, I read America's Dream by Esmeralda Santiago. This starts out in Vieques in Puerto Rico, and then our main character America is a housekeeper in a hotel, and this is a lot about sort of the American dream. It's a kind of a play on words. Our main character's name is America. She is hired by two guests at the hotel to move to the States and be the nanny for their children. Content warnings on this for on the page, very bad domestic abuse, and it's about the ways in which the United States has treated Puerto Ricans in Puerto Rico and exploited the island. It's about migrating. It's about the ways in which Americans look at other, like, sort of other Americans, like those coming from Puerto Rico. It's the differences in which migrants from Puerto Rico are treated versus immigrants from other nations. And it was a very quick read. It was very accessible. The writing wasn't like beautiful or anything like that, but I appreciated what it had to say about the relationship between the sort of dynamic between the United States and Puerto Mico, and the way that one feels when they move to the States, the differences in which how migrants from Puerto Rico and immigrants view each other, and the privilege that we have as Puerto Ricans in having citizenship, and not having some of the worries that obviously immigrants who don't have citizenship, some of the issues, some of the worries and the circumstances that they have to live through and deal with. And yeah, I thought this was a worthwhile read. Not my favorite by Thenovelsanctuary, but I still recommend it. I read Tipping the Velvet by Sarah Waters. This is about a young girl she's like a teenager who goes to her local theater to see a show, and sort of like upon first seeing her falls in love with this entertainer who is a woman who dresses as a man and performs as such on stage, and she keeps coming back every single day to see her, and then has the opportunity to meet her, and then they go off and sort of start a life together, with our main character being the entertainer's like dresser and assistant, and then they develop a relationship, and it goes on from there. And it's about our main character learning about sexuality and gender, and about coming into her own and finding agency, and about getting to learn about all of the socio-political issues that are going on at the time. This is set in, because they start talking about like women's rights and stuff like that, and voting and all of that. So I don't exactly remember, but I think it's like the early 20th century. And so she becomes involved with all of that, and she sort of has her eyes open, because she doesn't really buy into any of that. But as she begins to meet people and go through a lot of different situations, she finds that her eyes are open, and she's able to recognize all of the things that so many people are fighting for. There is a very disturbing relationship that she is in throughout a chunk of the middle of the book, in which it's very exploitative. She's exploited, and she's like abused mentally, and she's used, and it's very disturbing. And the person is much older and much richer, so the power dynamics there are vastly different. So just heads up for that. But yeah, I enjoyed my time with this historical fiction. Historical fiction is not always my favorite, but I do enjoy Sarah Waters' writing and her exploration of things like queerness and gender and class. And then we have my favorite read. Wait, no, that's two more left. My next two are my favorite reads of the month, and one is Plain Bad Heroines by Emily M. Danforth, and this is a novel that is set in two different times. We have this school, this all-girls school, where mysterious deaths continue to occur, and in the present day there has been a book written about these deaths that is being made into a movie. And so we have those two times, and there are so much amazing queerness happening in both times, and I loved this book so much. So I talk about it in my blog, if you want to check it out, where if I were to like think about this in a literary sense and think about the plot and where it ended up and where I think it was going, this might not be a 5-star read, because I know that the author kind of loses it towards the end. It leaves off with a vagueness that doesn't particularly seem purpose, but more like that's just, you just stumbled upon it and that's how it ended, and that's okay, that's fine for me, but might not be for other readers. I think some of our characters could have been developed more. There was some info dumpy sections, but overall the emotion that I got when I was reading this book is not like any that I've gotten in a really long time. I loved it so much. It's so gothic and queer, and it's written so beautifully. The language here is so evocative and beautiful. It's really weird. It's just sorry, my phone keeps going off. Yeah, I loved it so much. I had such a great time reading it. I couldn't put it down. I loved how it like the narrator speaks to you, and so it's kind of like it's like witty in that sense, and it like winks at you kind of, and it's a little bit of like multimedia, because it has illustrations and it has text messages, and it has like articles and scripts, and I loved it so much. Yeah, I mean, I have no complaints about it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think the first 400 pages were like perfect. The end, you kind of lost it. You were like, it's like it kind of I think, and Mercedes said this in her, from Mercedes Bookish Musings, she said this in her review, and I agree. You feel like you're building up and building up and building up, and then it kind of tapers off, which, like I said, is fine for me, because just how much I enjoyed the rest of it was such a high degree that I didn't care. But I know that that can be a huge letdown for some. As much as I love it, I think it could have been better if the ending had like a bigger punch, or felt a little bit more purposefully vague than it does, rather than just kind of like tapering off and like fizzling. But I loved it. I loved it so much. I had such a good time reading that book, and I highly recommend it. Then I read Juliet Takes a Breath by Gaby Rivera, and I loved this book so much as well. So Fucking Outstanding by Roxane Gay is like her blurb up here, and I highly like 100% agree. So this I thought was a young adult novel. It's not. It's new adult. She's 19 and in college, and the content reflects that. So heads up, I guess, if you are recommending it for younger YA readers. I say it more as like a librarian, where we have to be a little bit more cautious of that because parents, but I mean, I would have read this at like 13 and 14 and been fine, but if you're recommending it and you're not sure and you like to sort of stay clear within the lines and all that, then heads up, this is new adult. So yes, so we have our main character, Juliet, who lives in the Bronx and has read this book by this white feminist that has like revolutionized her. Like, it had just like completely opened her mind and made her question so much about herself and her identity, and she has realized that she's a lesbian, and she has this like kind of secret relationship with this girl. And so the book opens up on the day that she has been granted an internship with the author of this book that she's read. And so the author lives in Portland, and so it is the day that she's gonna leave for Portland to join this author, and she's gonna come out to her family, and it goes okay-ish. Like, her mom doesn't really dig it. The rest of her family is okay with it, and you know, so shows their support. And then it's about her just like completely being introduced into these worlds of social justice and feminism and learning so much, learning history and learning about the gender dynamics and the racial disparities within all of this, and about class, and about the ways in which white feminism is very much a plague to progress, and how a lot of white feminists will just not see how they hinder progress and how they uphold a lot of these like white supremacist thought. And it's just, oh my gosh, it is exactly what it feels like to be a woman of color coming into this world and just like having your eyes just like blown wide open. And it's about the ways in which you at first might not understand all of the, even as you're learning, you're still learning so much about all of the like minutia and all of the different ways in which you have to think about something. You know, it's not just the way that this affects women, but how does it affect queer women? How does it affect black women? How does it affect queer black women? And all of the ways in which all of those intersect. And it was just, it brought me back to when I first started to read feminist text and learn what it was, and how my ways of thinking just did a complete 180, and how when I started to volunteer at clinics, and how different it felt to be in a space that was very like very like feminist but very white, and then going into a space of people who look just like me, and just how much more free I felt, and how amazing that felt, and how much I learned. And it was just, this is beautiful. This is exactly like, all the little hiccups are exactly what I felt and what I still feel as I continue to learn. And yeah, like for me, my sort of white feminist text that I read, that was like the first feminist book that I read, and was like, whoa, dude. It was Full Frontal Feminism, A Young Woman's Guide to Why Feminist Matters by Jessica Valenti. And I haven't read this since I read it in high school, but I wonder if I read it now, I would have the issues that ultimately Juliet begins to have with the author, because she recognizes that even though this woman has such a significant impact on how she views her womanhood and her her feminism and her growing into these spaces, she begins to recognize like this woman has a lot of failings, and is viewing things through a very like cisgender white feminist way. And it's just like, ugh, read it if you haven't. It's amazing. And especially if you are like a young woman of color who, like, you went through all of this and you are still going through all of this, as you continue to learn and expand your ways of thinking and walk into these spaces, just this book will really just because that's exactly what it did for me. Love it so much, highly recommend it. So these two are my favorite for the past month, but I overall had a pretty good reading month. I hope everybody had a great Pride month. It was great reading wise for me. Let's continue to read queer books the entire year. And yeah, as always, thank you for watching and for listening. I love you all very much.